Happy New Year, everybody! You see, I'd rather not talk about Bright, considering no one wants to talk about Bright, so instead let's talk about Star Wars The Last Jedi, the most polarizing film since the last Star Wars film. Before I start off this review and I voice my actual opinion, if you disagree with me, don't blindly dislike this video as soon as you hear what I have to say. Maybe actually listen to what I'm saying. Like, you can disagree with me all you want, that's not the problem. But you can't hate someone for having valid opinions, you know? If I hate it for, let's say, there are no Gungans in it or something, fine, hate me all you want. But, you know, just at least listen to what I have to say. Oh, and well done for giving this movie $1 billion, because that helps your cause a lot. Star Wars The Last Jedi is directed and written by Rian Johnson. It stars Daisy Ridley, Adam Driver, Mark Hamill, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher, Gwendolyn Christie, Andy Serkis, Domhnall Gleeson, Laura Dern, Benicio del Toro, and Peter Mayhew, as well as a few others. And yeah, it's the sequel to Star Wars The Force Awakens. Now let's talk about it. So, now I know all of you are gonna dislike this video, here's what I actually think of the film. Star Wars The Last Jedi is a great Star Wars film. Yeah, okay, so now this video's got 10 dislikes, let's go on with this. Why is Star Wars The Last Jedi a good film? Well, if you'll let me explain. For one, it has great direction. I think Rian Johnson is actually a pretty proven director, from stuff like Looper, Breaking Bad, Brick, a couple of other things that no one's ever heard of before. But this film has sort of etched various images into my mind, and that's all down to Johnson's direction. Without spoiling much, even though I probably should get into spoilers, considering if you haven't seen this film yet, let's face it, you'll never see it. But Star Wars The Last Jedi is very well directed, and I really appreciate that. In general, Rian Johnson has a great vision for this movie and takes it in a really good direction. Unfortunately, he's not as good of a writer as he is a director. Now don't get me wrong, this film is not sloppily written. In fact, I'd say about 80%, maybe 75% of this film is really well written. In general, the whole premise idea is pretty great, and yeah, I'm gonna go into spoilers now, okay? Okay. I like the idea of the entire resistance just being bound to one ship and forced on the run. I think that's really well done. I like what they do with Kylo Ren, I like what they do with Rey and Luke. As a whole, that's really damn entertaining. With Rian Johnson's writing, he does have some great moments in there. I think he's able to give off some brilliant performances from Ridley, Driver, Hamill. They're all perfect in this film. And I know there are a couple of plot holes, aka just one, which is why didn't Laura Dern tell Oscar Isaac about that one thing? But if that's what you're basing all your criticism off, then I think there's something wrong. Now, when I say all the characters are well done, I mean most of them. Rian Johnson knew what to do with Rey, Kylo, Luke, Poe, Leia, and not Finn. My main criticism of this film is that Rian Johnson wastes Finn. It's because they don't know what to do with him. They kind of give him the same character arc as he has in 7, which doesn't really work. And I just thought of a way better plotline they could give him. Maybe this time, rather than him having to deal with being brave again, maybe he should have to deal with being a hero. So when he comes to sacrifice himself, it actually shows he's developed as a character. He's accepted that he's a hero. Also, Rose Tycho, no offense to Kelly Marie Tran, but all of her scenes just weren't that good. The whole Canto Bite stuff didn't need to be there. The only reason it was there is because they needed something to do with Finn to get him out of the way. I didn't really like Benicio del Toro in this movie, nothing against him, but, you know, he felt secondary to the rest of the film. In fact, that's kind of all of Canto Bite. It's just stuff that's there to build up the runtime. Like, why don't they just cut all the Canto Bight stuff and DJ, and instead just have Finn, Poe, Rose, and BB-8 go onto the Supremacy and try to shut off the tracker? And then we could have way more of Captain Phasma, we could have some more interesting dialogue scenes, then that plot hole would be gone that everyone's complaining about, and then before you know, several of your flaws are gone. But instead of that, we have to get forced messages about slavery, and more children in Star Wars films, and just stuff that you don't care about. And it wasn't necessarily that the Canto Bight scenes were bad, it's because they were distracting from some stuff that was great. The great, of course, being the stuff going on with Rey and Luke. I think Mark Hamill is at his best as Luke here. In fact, this might be his best performance of all time. Daisy Ridley's pretty great as well, and everything they do with it is pretty great. Same with Kylo Ren. Okay, now I have to talk about the main criticisms of this film. Straight up, if this applies to you, you're wrong, okay? You cannot criticize a film for taking too many risks. Just put it that way. If a film kills a character, why do you criticize it for killing that character? Unless, of course, they have a purpose. The point of Snoke is that he's a red herring, essentially, to build on Kylo Ren's storyline, and it works really effectively. But of course, you're all complaining that Snoke got cut in half. Because, you know, Supreme Leader Snoke was a character with such potential. He's a wrinkly old guy in a bathrobe, for crying out loud. That's bright gold. Just calm down, Star Wars fans. It's not as bad as you think. Like, do we know anything about the Emperor when we see him in Return of the Jedi? No, because it doesn't matter. Same as it doesn't matter, like, about the entirety of Snoke's backstory. Who cares? This isn't Snoke's movie. This is Kylo Ren's movie. This is Rey's movie. And then there's all the idiots that are complaining Captain Phasma didn't get enough screen time. Because, you know, the film trailers, they promise so much of her, you know, it's really disappointing. You know, I mean, sure, maybe she was built up to be more than she was, but look at Boba Fett. Like, I'd hate to say it, but the original Star Wars films are as flawed as these films are. The fact that you're not seeing it, Star Wars fans aren't seeing it, is kind of on them for putting Star Wars at such a high point. I came into this film expecting to see a Star Wars film and wanting to see these characters developed again, not validate my obsession with fricking Star Wars lore. If you seriously complain about them losing potential in this way, like, come on, who cares about Captain Phasma? She's not the point of the film. Short ramble over. What else is there to say? Anything I liked or didn't like? The score was pretty great from John Williams. It was better than Episode 7's score. All the CG and practical effects were pretty great. I mean, I think I've already mentioned that, but, you know, it deserves a mention over me kind of just moaning a little bit. Speaking of moaning, the other flaw I have is that it has Guardians of the Galaxy 2 syndrome, where it has an emotional moment, but then follows it up with a joke, and quite often it doesn't land. Like, when it suits it, it does work quite well. The problem with the jokes is sometimes they don't land, and they're placed in really odd places. If you get what I mean there. So it's not the problem of Rian Johnson as a whole, because he did direct it really well, but I feel like he could have done with someone else working with him. Like, let's say you also had Lawrence Kasdan, or J.J. Abrams, or another talented writer helping him along. Because, as a result, there are these problems there. And no, it's not because of wasted potential. Shut up, Star Wars fans, shut up. So anyway, this film is pretty divisive. I can see why, but I don't really agree with it. But yeah, I do have problems with this film for sure. As I said, the Canto Bight stuff can be dropped. They don't know what to do with Finn. They have jokes in weird places. That's 3 problems. And then there's all the good stuff. like the excellent performances from nearly every single actor in this film, the great space battles and action sequences in this film. While they are minimal, it works really well. I think people are also forgetting that this film doesn't copy Empire Strikes Back, which is the exact thing that nearly everyone didn't want in this film, but then they complained when instead it did do the same thing, but said it was taking risks. I don't know, it doesn't make any sense. The Star Wars fans don't make any sense as a whole. You know, and of course, the Rey plotline is great, Luke stuff's great, Kylo stuff is great, the Poe stuff's pretty good. Well, with the exception of that plot hole, but come on, that's just one plot hole. You can't hate the original Star Wars because of a plot hole. I mean, for crying out loud, when they're in a sewer, a trash compactor, this freaking squid monster comes out for no reason. And then it dies, and then the film keeps on going like nothing ever happened. Well, that's something. But yeah, again, there's a lot of great stuff in this film I think people are overlooking because of one or two flaws, which doesn't make any sense. The way I consider film ratings to be is that if you have more negatives than positives, then it's bad. If there are more positives than negatives, then it's good. And right now, the positives, performances, direction, visuals, score, set design, costume design, CGI, action sequences, character development. That's 9 things right there that work. And the things that don't are minor plot holes. You know, I'm not even going to bother mentioning the stupid things that fans are complaining about. So it's just minor plot holes, Canto Bite, doing nothing with Finn, bad jokes. So by that logic, I've just listed 4 bad things and 9 good things. So that means 4 out of 13 are bad at this film. Now, does that sound like the majority to you? No, I didn't think so. So, in conclusion, Star Wars The Last Jedi, while not perfect, I still really enjoyed this film. There are times where I'd say the main problem I have with it, and I'm having a lot of problems rating this film, because it has worse. It's worse than Force Awakens at its worst, but it's way better than Force Awakens at its best. That's why I'm having problems with this. Its lowest is lower than Force Awakens, but its highest is higher. So for that reason, it's really hard to plot. So I guess whatever score I give it is going to be pretty malleable. So yeah, in conclusion, Star Wars The Last Jedi is one of the better Star Wars films out there. Because at the end of the day, it takes characters and directions I don't expect, while also giving us a really great visual flair and a really good vision from its director. It goes back to the simple methods of Star Wars, whilst being completely unpredictable. And whilst, yes, one of its 4 major plot lines does weigh down the whole story of it, it is still pretty great. And because of that, I'm going to give Star Wars The Last Jedi... I'm struggling. Either 8 or 9 out of 10. You know, I'm just going to go 8.5 out of 10. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Star Wars The Last Jedi. This has also turned into a small rant against Star Wars fans, I suppose. Which was really unintentional, but hey, these things happen. Anyway, with that said, I want to know what you guys think about Star Wars The Last Jedi in the comments below. And anyway, be sure to like this video as well, because I know there'll be tons of dislikes anyway. And with that said, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to subscribe, like, and comment, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.